She said I looked cute in my old dress, then kissed my son like she just won a prize. That was the moment I knew. She didn't marry him for love. She married him for what she thought he'd get. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Tap like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. You don't want to miss how this story unfolds. The wedding was beautiful, I'll give her that. The white tent, the string quartet, the signature cocktails with rosemary sprigs. It had Allison written all over it, my soon-to-be daughter-in-law and future head of operations of whatever kingdom she thought she was walking into. I sat near the back, quiet, smiling when it was expected. I wore the same pale blue dress I wore to my niece's wedding 5 years ago, the one Harold always said made my eyes look softer. It didn't matter what I wore, not to me, but it mattered to Allison. "Oh," she said, looking me up and down just before the ceremony, "you look so sweet, like a little old robin's egg." I smiled, the kind of smile you give someone just before you shut the door in their face. David looked handsome, nervous. He always wanted to be liked, always chased people who made him feel special, even when they didn't mean a word of it. I loved him too much to say what I really thought of Allison. So I stayed silent. I didn't tell him about the $7 million his father had left me, in a trust he never knew existed. Harold planned it that way. "You'll know when to tell him," he wrote, or not. During the rehearsal dinner, I overheard Allison talking to her maid of honor. She still lives in that tiny house. Can you believe it? I mean, I guess that's what happens when your husband dies and you've got nothing left. Poor thing. They laughed. I excused myself and took a walk. Not because I was hurt, but because I was grateful. Grateful I hadn't told them anything. Grateful I'd stayed invisible. Because invisibility is power when people think you're irrelevant. And that's when I realized they had plans for me, not just after the wedding, long term. And every one of those plans depended on me being quiet, obedient, and broke. Which, thank God, I wasn't. But they didn't just assume I had nothing. They tried to claim what wasn't theirs. In New Chapter, I overhear something that changes everything, and I finally start playing my own game. 2 days after the wedding, I stayed behind to help clean up. They'd rented a gorgeous lodge in the Berkshires. Everyone was either flying back home or too hungover to move. Not me. I cleaned out champagne flutes like it was therapy. Allison and David were upstairs. At least, I thought they were. Until I walked past the kitchen door and heard voices on speakerphone. It was Allison. "No, she hasn't said anything about money," she whispered, "but trust me, she's sitting on something. Probably Harold's pension or life insurance, and I'm not going to let her die with it just locked in an account." A pause. Then she laughed. "She's going to hand it over eventually, one way or another." My hands froze on the sponge. I didn't breathe, didn't move. That wasn't casual curiosity. That was strategy and entitlement and greed. I backed away slowly, didn't confront her, didn't tell David. I just kept washing dishes and decided right then they'll never see a dime. I went home the next day, sat at my kitchen table with my tea, and opened Harold's binder. Inside, the name of the attorney, the trustee contact, a list of investment accounts, and the original will in Harold's handwriting. You'll know when to tell him, or not. That week, Allison sent me a long, sweet message. "Hi, Mom. I hope you're settling back in. We were wondering if we could swing by next weekend and talk about a few long-term ideas. David mentioned how you probably don't want to be alone forever in that little place." They were going to suggest moving in. Of course they were. And then probably suggest I consolidate assets, maybe transfer home title, maybe even make things easier legally, just in case. I replied, "Thank you, but I'll be unavailable for the next few weeks, taking a short trip." Smiley face. I didn't say where, didn't say with whom, but I did say no. And for the first time in years, It felt like a yes to myself. But they weren't done, because when money doesn't come to people like that, they start plotting. In New Chapter, they show up uninvited and try to flip the script on me in my own kitchen. It was Sunday morning when I heard the knock. Not a call, not a text, a knock, sharp and rhythmic on my front door. I looked out the window. David and Allison, unannounced, smiling like this was a casual brunch visit, like they didn't just whisper about bleeding me dry 2 days earlier. I took a deep breath, straightened my cardigan, and opened the door. "Hi, Mom," Allison chirped, stepping inside before I even invited her. "We were in the neighborhood, thought we'd say hi." David followed her in, carrying a box of pastries. Brought croissants. I nodded, keeping my voice calm. "Those look expensive." Allison laughed. "Well, we thought we'd treat you a little." Treat me? They sat themselves down at my kitchen table. My table, like it belonged to them. I made tea, silent and slow, letting the kettle whistle a little too long. Then Allison got to it. "We've been thinking," she started, stirring her tea like it was a business meeting. "This house is a lot to maintain for someone your age, and we know you've got memories here, but wouldn't it be nice to move somewhere easier, somewhere quieter?" She smiled, tilted her head, fake concern wrapped in silk. David chimed in. "Like a senior community, just to start looking. We could help, make it all smoother for you." I set the teapot down hard enough to make her flinch. "I'm not planning to move," I said plainly. Allison leaned forward. Of course. Just, it might be smart to plan ahead, and if you do decide to transition, we could help coordinate finances. It can get complicated with wills, property transfers, estate taxes." She stopped talking when she saw the look on my face. "I've handled complicated," I said, "more than you know." There was a beat of silence. David tried to fill it. "We just don't want you to feel overwhelmed, especially without Dad." Ah, there it was. I stared at him, not angrily, just enough to make him look down. "I may not have Harold anymore," I said, "but I still have the life he built, and the clarity to decide what happens to it." They sat frozen. Then Allison smiled again, tight and professional. "Well, we just wanted to check in. We're always here if you change your mind." I walked them to the door. "I won't," I said. But what they did next, that was the first time I truly felt afraid. In New Chapter, I get a letter I never expected, and realize this wasn't just manipulation anymore, it was war. I found it tucked between the bills and grocery coupons. A plain white envelope. No return address. My name printed neatly on the front. It wasn't handwritten. It wasn't warm. It was formal. And the second I opened it, I felt my stomach turn. It was a petition to assess whether I was mentally capable of managing my estate. Filed in court by David and Allison. The language was cold. Concerning cognitive decline. Displays irrational behavior. Unusual attachment to assets. I read it 3 times. Each time, it made less sense and more. This wasn't about helping me. This wasn't about concern. This was a hostile legal maneuver. A move to gain control of my finances by declaring me incompetent. I didn't cry. Didn't scream. I walked to the sink, poured myself a glass of water. Then I sat down and opened Harold's binder again. That's when I noticed something I'd skipped before. A letter, tucked into the back cover, dated a year before he passed. "Judith, if you're reading this, it means things are happening that neither of us wanted. If David ever tries to take what doesn't belong to him, don't fight. Prepare. Inside this envelope is the contact for someone who can help. I trusted him. You can too." There was a business card. Name, Marcus Yates. Title, Estate and Trust Litigation. Harold had planned for this. He knew. I called. He picked up on the first ring. I explained everything. Quietly, clearly. He didn't sound surprised. Just said, "We've seen worse, and we've won." We set an appointment. He told me what to gather. I hung up, sat back, breathed. They thought they had me backed into a corner. They didn't realize Harold had built me an escape hatch. But before I could even meet the lawyer in person, they came back. This time with a clipboard and someone in a suit. In New Chapter, Part 2, I open the door to a friendly evaluator and close it with a truth they never expected. He arrived at 9:12 a.m. Polite knock, clipboard in hand, beige slacks, corporate smile. The kind of man trained to look disarming and forgettable. "Mrs. Lawson?" "Yes. I'm here to conduct your cognitive assessment. Just a standard procedure, won't take long." Of course he was. And of course it was standard. I stepped aside and let him in. Let him believe he was in control, just long enough. We sat in the living room. He asked about dates, presidents, simple math, drew a clock, named vegetables. I answered everything, slowly, clearly, with a smile that said, "You're wasting your time." Then he asked, "Do you know the value of your current assets?" I tilted my head. "Do you?" He blinked, smiled. "It's just a routine question, ma'am." "Mm-hmm. And do you ask that of every patient, or just the ones with well-dressed predators hovering over their checkbooks?" He didn't respond. I stood up, walked to my china cabinet, pulled out the binder, set it between us. Inside, financial statements, my updated will, the notarized letter from Harold, the contact information for Marcus Yates, and, for fun, the receipt from the wedding, paid in full, by me. "I may be old," I said softly, "but I am not confused." He nodded. "I'm required to file a report. May I ask if you feel safe?" I looked him straight in the eye. Define safe. He left without finishing his tea. Didn't say much on the way out, just a quiet, "Good luck, ma'am." I closed the door, locked it, and went straight to my desk. Typed one sentence in a Word document. My son and his wife filed to take legal control of my life while eating croissants at my table. Then I hit post. Where? Facebook. And within hours, it began. But I didn't expect the response, not just the shares, not just the comments, the interview, the call, the fallout. In New Chapter, I go public, and they finally realize I wasn't the one being watched. They were. It was only 5 lines. No hashtags, no tags, no emojis. Just the truth, written plainly, like Harold used to do when he left notes on the fridge. My son and his wife filed a petition to take over my estate. They say I'm unfit to manage my life. I cooked their wedding dinner. I paid for the tent. I folded their laundry. And now I'm apparently a threat to myself. I'm not posting this for pity. I'm posting this because silence protects the wrong people. I went to bed at 9:30. By 6 a.m., my phone had 87 notifications. By noon, the post had 14,000 shares. Women from all over the country, some older than me, some my daughter's age, were commenting. Same thing happened to my aunt, tagging my mom, "Read this. You're a hero for speaking up." I couldn't breathe, not because I was panicking, because I felt something I hadn't in months, seen. That evening, my landline rang. "Mrs. Lawson, this is Megan from Channel 7. We came across your post and, wow, would you be open to sharing your story on air?" I said yes, not because I wanted the attention, but because I knew exactly who would be watching. And, sure enough, they were. Allison texted first. "We never meant for this to go public. Can you please take it down? It's ruining David's reputation." Then David emailed me. "I don't know why you're doing this. This isn't you." He was right. It wasn't who I used to be, but it's exactly who I had become. The interview aired on Friday. I wore my best blouse, spoke slowly, clearly, no bitterness, just facts. The public loved it. My church group sent me flowers. The estate attorney, he said, "You just made my job 10 times easier." By Monday, the judge had postponed the competency hearing. By Wednesday, the realtor Allison was working with quietly ended their agreement. By the following week, the petition was officially withdrawn. And just like that, they lost, without me raising my voice once. But when the dust settled and the calls stopped, the silence wasn't comforting, because deep down, I still loved him, and I wondered, did he ever really love me back? In New Chapter, I open a letter I never expected, and it changes how I see everything that came before. It arrived in my mailbox without a return address. Just a plain white envelope tucked under a real estate flyer and a coupon for frozen meals. But I knew that handwriting, even after all this time. David. It wasn't typed, it wasn't formal, it was messy, rushed, human. "Mom, I don't know what to say. Maybe I should have said something sooner. Maybe I never should have let Allison push like she did. You always told me to speak up when I saw something wrong. I guess I stopped listening to that somewhere along the way. I didn't expect it to go this far. I didn't think you'd actually fight back. I thought you'd just let it go. But I was wrong, and you reminded me who you are. I don't deserve anything from you. Not money, not property, not even a reply. But if you do ever want to talk, I'll be here. I'll listen this time." No signature, just D. I sat in the kitchen, letter in hand, sunlight creeping across the tiles like it had somewhere to be. I didn't cry. I didn't smile either. It was one of those moments where the heart feels tired, not broken. Because I wanted to believe him, but part of me knew apologies without action are just decorated regret. Still, I didn't throw it away. I placed it in the folder behind Harold's will, because truth deserves to be saved, even if it's late. Then I stood up, walked to the stove, and made myself tea. Harold once said, "If you can make tea without trembling, you're still in control." The kettle whistled, and I poured. But just when I thought the story was finished, another voice entered the picture, one I hadn't heard in years. And this time, it wasn't asking for anything. It was offering something I didn't realize I needed. Then, in New Chapter, an unexpected letter from someone else changes the direction of my future. It had been 3 weeks since David's letter. 3 weeks of silence. No calls, no texts, just that folded page behind Harold's will and a stillness I couldn't decide was peace or loneliness. Then, one morning, another envelope arrived. Thicker, lavender paper, a small hand-drawn heart next to my name. It wasn't from David. It wasn't from Allison. It was from Emily. Emily is my niece, Rose's daughter, the one I used to braid hair for on camping trips before she moved to Oregon and married a woman with a strawberry farm and too many chickens. We hadn't spoken in years, not because of anger, just distance and silence. But Emily never forgot me. Her letter was warm, messy, ink-smudged in places. "Aunt Judy, someone shared your story online, and I realized I've missed you more than I ever said. I've been following what happened, and I want to say I'm proud of you. I don't know if you're okay. I don't know if you're lonely. But if you ever want to come stay with us, even for a week, our guest room is yours. No questions, no pressure. Just, we'd love to see you." I read it twice, then again. I didn't cry. I laughed, a small, surprised laugh that felt like the first real exhale in months. That evening, I sat on the porch wrapped in my favorite cardigan, the one Harold bought me on our 25th anniversary. I drank tea, watched the wind play with the trees, and I imagined a farm. The smell of strawberries, Emily's laugh, and the sound of a house with people who didn't want anything from me, except maybe my recipe for peach cobbler. I picked up the phone, dialed a number I hadn't used in 10 years. Emily? Aunt Judy! She started crying. I did too. But before I could pack a bag or book a flight, something else showed up in my mailbox. Something that wasn't a letter or a petition or a thank you card. In New Chapter, the final chapter, I open a message that changes everything, and I make a decision I never thought I would. It wasn't an envelope this time. It was a large brown folder, hand-delivered, not by mail. The sticker on it said, Lawson & Yates, LLP, Harold's lawyer, Marcus. Inside was everything we'd discussed, drafts, documents, witness signatures, and one line, printed in bold at the top of the last page. Transfer of full beneficiary rights, revocation of prior heirs. It was final. All I had to do was sign. I sat there, pen in hand, staring at David's name, crossed out, legally, permanently. He had tried to take what wasn't his. He'd plotted, lied, allowed the woman he married to treat his own mother like an ATM with arthritis. And still, some small voice in me whispered, "Is this what Harold would want?" I closed my eyes and remembered something. It was our last Christmas together, Harold and I. David had missed dinner. Allison had the flu, or so she said. I was furious, hurt, angry. But Harold, he just smiled and handed me a gift. Sometimes we have to love people from far away, he said. That doesn't mean we stop loving them. It just means we stop letting them hurt us. I opened the bottom drawer of my desk, took out David's letter, reread it, then set it beside the legal transfer. And I signed. Not to erase him, but to protect myself. And I added one small clause, just for me. All assets shall transfer to Emily Louise Carter and remain within the Carter family line. It wasn't revenge. It was preservation, and love redirected towards someone who still knew how to give it back. A week later, I stepped onto a plane. One suitcase, one handwritten recipe card, and one envelope in my purse, addressed to David. It read, "I loved you first, but I won't be last. I'm moving forward. You're free to do the same. Thank you for being with me through this story. If you've ever felt erased, replaced, or underestimated, this is your reminder. You don't have to fight to be heard. You only have to know your worth." Like, comment, and tell me where you're watching from. Subscribe so you never miss another story that makes you feel seen.